There's a plant outside your house that you've probably ignored your entire life. You walk past it. You don't think about it. You assume it's just there. It doesn't move. It doesn't react. It doesn't do anything interesting. So your brain categorizes it instantly. Background. But what if that's completely wrong? What if that plant isn't passive at all? What if, right now, it's sensing its environment, processing information, adjusting its behavior, all without a brain, not slowly dying in place, but actively responding to the world around it? And not in a simple way, in a way that starts to feel uncomfortably close to something we usually associate with intelligence. So the real question becomes, if a plant can't think, can't feel, and doesn't have a brain, then how is it behaving like it understands what's happening around it? The problem isn't the plant, it's your perception. Humans are wired to recognize movement, fast movement, sudden change. That's what signals life to your brain. Animals move quickly, they react instantly, they make noise. Plants don't do any of that, so your brain simplifies. No movement equals no activity. But that assumption only works if everything operates on your timescale. Plants don't. They operate on a completely different timeline. If you recorded a plant over hours, days, or weeks, and then sped it up, it would look completely different. You would see leaves turning, stems bending, structures shifting direction. It wouldn't look passive anymore. It would look like something actively adjusting, because that's exactly what it's doing, just too slowly for you to notice in real time. How a plant knows where light is. Let's take something simple. Light. Plants need light to survive. That part is obvious. But the way they get it isn't random. They don't just grow upward and hope for the best. They actively orient themselves toward light sources. This process is called phototropism. But that word doesn't really explain what's happening. So break it down. A plant has cells that can detect light intensity and direction. When light hits one side more than the other, the plant redistributes a growth hormone called auxin. Auxin moves toward the darker side of the plant. On that side, it causes cells to elongate more, so one side grows faster than the other, and the plant bends. That means the plant isn't just reacting randomly, it's detecting a gradient, redistributing internal resources, changing its structure accordingly. That's a chain of events, input to processing to output, not consciousness, but definitely not passive either. It doesn't just react, it anticipates. Now here's where things get more interesting. Plants don't just respond to what's happening right now, they prepare for what's about to happen. They have internal timing systems known as circadian rhythm. This is similar to what humans have. Even if you remove external cues like sunlight, plants still follow a schedule. They open leaves at expected daylight hours. They close them at expected night hours. That means they aren't just reacting to light, they're predicting it. Their internal processes align with cycles they've already learned. That's not thinking, but it is timing-based behavior, which is far more advanced than people assume. The part you never see. Above ground, plants seem simple. Below ground, it's a different story. Roots are constantly growing, but not randomly. They're navigating, searching, adjusting. They detect water gradients, nutrient levels, physical resistance. If one direction has more nutrients, more roots grow that way. If there's a rock, they redirect. If the soil is dry, they expand toward moisture. This happens through processes like gravitropism, growth in response to gravity, chemotropism, growth in response to chemicals. What's important is this: there's no central control system, no brain telling roots what to do. Each part responds locally, but the overall result looks coordinated. That's what makes it interesting, because coordination without a central brain starts to resemble a system solving problems. Plants can signal danger before it happens. Now imagine an insect starts eating a leaf. You'd expect the plant to just take damage, but that's not what happens. The plant detects the attack, then releases chemicals into the air. These are called volatile organic compounds. Nearby plants detect these chemicals, and they respond by activating their own defenses before the insect even reaches them. That means one plant gets attacked and others prepare in advance. This is not random chemistry. This is detection signaling response across multiple organisms. In directing further, instead of defending directly, they attract something else to do it for them. When attacked by specific insects, they release signals that attract predators of those insects. For example, if caterpillars are feeding on a plant, the plant can release compounds that attract parasitic wasps. The wasps arrive, they target the caterpillars, the plant survives. The plant didn't plan this, but the system evolved in a way that produces that outcome, which feels uncomfortably close to strategy. Now take everything above ground and connect it underground. Plants are linked by fungal networks. These are called mycorrhizal network. Fungi attach to plant roots and form connections between different plants. Through this network, nutrients can move, signals can travel, stress responses can spread. Some experiments suggest larger plants can transfer nutrients to smaller ones. Stressed plants can signal others. This is not cooperation in a human sense, but it is a system where multiple organisms are interconnected. Information and resources don't stay isolated. Now we get into something even more surprising. Some plants grow differently depending on who they're next to. If a plant's roots encounter roots from the same plant, they grow less aggressively. If they encounter roots from a different plant, they compete more. This suggests the plant can distinguish between self, non-self. Not consciously, but biologically. That's a level of recognition most people don't associate with plants at all. Plants don't have neurons, but they do have signaling systems. When part of a plant is damaged, electrical signals can travel through its tissues. These signals trigger responses in other parts. It's slower than a nervous system, but functionally, it serves a similar role: communication within the organism. So instead of a brain coordinating everything, the plant uses distributed signaling, multiple parts communicating continuously. This is where things get even more uncomfortable. Plants can show forms of memory. Not memory like recalling events, but memory in terms of changing behavior based on past exposure. For example, some plants respond less intensely to repeated harmless stimuli. They learn that something isn't a threat and adjust their response. That's called habituation. It's a basic form of learning, and it exists without a brain. At this point, it becomes a definition problem. Plants sense their environment, process signals, adapt, behavior, communicate, but they don't think, feel, have awareness, as far as we know. So calling it intelligence feels wrong, but calling it simple feels wrong too. What scientists often call this is complex adaptive behavior. Systems that take in information, respond in structured ways, improve survival, without consciousness. The reason this feels surprising isn't because plants changed, it's because your perspective did. You've been filtering them out your entire life. They don't demand attention, they don't move fast, they don't compete with your senses. So your brain ignores them, but they were always doing this. You just weren't looking. Once you understand this, it changes how you see life. Because intelligence might not be limited to brains, coordination might not require a central system, and behavior doesn't always need awareness. That shrub outside your house is not simple. It's part of a system, constantly sensing, constantly adjusting, constantly interacting, quietly. And this is just the beginning, because some plants don't just respond slowly, some react almost instantly. They close, they move, they react to touch in real time. Which raises a new question. If plants can move quickly, then how different are they from animals, really? In the next video, we're breaking down plants that move fast enough to see, and why they completely change how you define